Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comics, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. And we always start with the pick of the week, but first, just gotta say, what a massive week we've got this week. So many comics, some good, some bad, some very ugly. However, we're going to get into it, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Rare Flavours, issue number 1 from Boom Studios. Now, this is written by Rom V, and it's illustrated by Felipe Andrade. I absolutely love and cherish and adore this book. We got a sneak peek last month in an ash can. We talked about that here on the channel. Very excited to dive in to the first full episode, the first full issue, if you will, of this new book from Rom V and Felipe Andrade, who were, of course, the team of The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, which was one of my absolute favorite comic books a couple years ago. It blew me away, and we got the start of what could be another modern classic right here with Rare Flavours. Now, Rom V is crafting a really cool story that's similar in certain aspects to The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, to These Savage Shores, because it's leaning into, I think mythology from India and stuff like that, right? So it's about a mythological figure who has left his position to come to Earth, right? And in Many Deaths of Layla Starr, we had Death, the goddess of death, get fired from her position. This dude has left his position. He's amongst the world. He's obsessed with food and culture and flavor. And at the death of Anthony Bourdain, he is inspired to find a documentary filmmaker, and just he wants to do his own kind of what was the show called? No Reservations. He wants to do his own thing like Anthony Bourdain, because he believes that he can showcase the true texture and experience of culture through food himself. And so that's what this is, but there is a lot more to that. You get some recipes in here, so that's really cool. You get a recipe for a tea, but there's also an interesting way with how that recipe kind of thematically ties in with what's going on in the story, and then it keeps developing, and then when you get to the very end of this book, it's got a certain kind of twist, might be the wrong word, but it's got a certain kind of spin that it takes that really sets it apart. I loved this book. The artwork by Andrade is absolutely flawless. It is majestic, it is masterful, and the color work is just abso-freaking-lutely amazing. This by far is the pick of the week. Lots of good books out this week, but this is the one that rose above and beyond everybody else. Just also another little note, Fish Flies number 2 from Jeff Lemire was supposed to come out today. There was some kind of printing defect on it. They've ordered all comic shops to destroy those copies, and it's coming out in October. So that's why we're not talking about Fish Flies today, if you are asking. Let's jump over to DC, where we have Wonder Woman number 1, actually 801, but it's a new issue 1 for Wonder Woman. It's the start of a brand new creative team, written by Tom King with artwork by Daniel Samperi. I didn't really like this book. I thought it was just kind of okay. I like some of the thematic stuff that Tom King is playing with, and I even like some of the elements of the plot, because what has happened is that there was an incident in America where an Amazon wound up killing a bunch of Americans, right? So that set up this whole idea now that Amazons are being deported from the States, they're being banned, they're being hunted down, stuff like that. And there's a character, Sergeant Steele, who we are familiar with if you're a longtime DC reader, who is kind of tasked with the goal of hunting down all these Amazons and getting them out of the country and all of that kind of stuff, right? And of course, Diana is going to have some conflict in there. So I like some elements of the plot setup. I really do like some of the thematic elements, but it's the execution in the script that I just don't like. Most of my criticisms about Tom King writing come right to the forefront here. Needless narration that doesn't do anything except for hinder the amazing talent of the artists that are working with him. Now, I'm not saying I don't like Tom King. Recently, I loved Human Target. Older works of his, like Omega Men and The Vision, I absolutely adore those books. Mr. Miracle, he works with some great artists. He's got some cool ideas, but I just think that he's just kind of been stuck in this circle where he's just kind of being very repetitive, kind of doing the same thing. But the biggest issue for me is that there are just, it's not that I don't mind too many words on a comic. Well, I do mind too many words in a comic. I do. I don't mind too many words on a comic when it doesn't feel like too many, when it doesn't hinder the flow of the book or the art, when it works in conjunction with the art to deliver a unique experience that only comic books can deliver. Tom King's just not doing it for me. The excessive narration, the excessive over-explaining and exposition bogs me down in this issue of Wonder Woman. So we'll see what happens as this series develops, because like I said, there's some interesting core ideas here, but it's just the execution doesn't quite work for me. Then we got Green Lantern War Journal issue number 1. Philip Kennedy Johnson coming in to do a John Stewart-centric Green Lantern book, of course with the name of a Punisher comic. You know what? I think that's fine. Now this has been set up in the backup stories in the Hal Jordan Green Lantern book by Jeremy Adams, and that book's been really solid, and I liked the setup of this enough to definitely be excited to check this out. But I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was really cool, a great focus, and it's a great focus in on John Stewart, but done in a slightly different way. Sometimes you get this like one-note approach to John Stewart from writers. It's like there's so many Green Lanterns that they all just kind of have their issue, their flaw, and their heroic traits, and like that's pretty much it. And it makes these characters seem and feel one-dimensional. That's not the case here with John Stewart. I like some of the different angles that were given in on his life, in on his conflicts, in on his persona. So Green Lantern War Journal, I think this is going to appeal to a lot of Green Lantern fans, especially those of John Stewart. Superman number 6 is here, kicking off the new arc of Superman. Now, of course, most of these DC books had a lot of momentum, just completely stopped over 2 months because of the Night Terrors. So it's interesting to see what books can continue to actually pick up and reestablish that momentum and in the direction that they were going in. Superman by Joshua Williamson is one of those books. I absolutely love the events in this issue. I like the way that they are portrayed. The art in this one is by Gleb Melnikov, who is a solid enough artist. I really liked him working with Josh on the Robin series, but for Superman, it just doesn't quite work for me. It doesn't hit that level that Jamal Campbell has been hitting in the pages, so it doesn't feel as dynamic. It doesn't have that exciting, bombastic perspective, but it does get the job done. But the story is really cool. It looks like Lex Luthor may be in dire danger. How is Superman and the rest of Metropolis going to continue that, and how are we going to continue to build up these threads that Josh Williamson has laid down? And it's working exceptionally well for me in the pages of Superman. Catwoman number 57, this is written by Teenie Howard with artwork by Nico Leone. This is a very essential chapter in the Batman Catwoman Gotham War. You know, they could actually make that a little bit more obvious here, but we all know, and I know a lot of people are reading Chip Zdarsky's Batman run. A lot of people that are reading that run are not reading Catwoman. I don't typically always vibe with Teenie Howard's writing in the long term, but this was a solid enough issue. But I will tell you this, it is a crucial and essential chapter in this story. If you skip this and you come right into the next issue of Batman, which I have been able to read as well, you will be lost about certain things. Some of that stuff will definitely fill itself in for you, but there's a lot of story beats in here, including some of the conflict between Jason, Selina, and Bruce that comes to fruition in the next issue. So I think this issue was solid. The artwork was fine. It was decent. There's this one panel where, like, Red Hood is so much larger than Catwoman that it just seems comical. And they're on the same level. She's not in the background. That's almost comical. It's almost comical. Aside from that, the artwork for the most part is pretty solid. The story's decent. It's awesome. It's interesting. So I'm liking this Zdarsky-Howard collaboration between Batman and Catwoman right now, and I'm digging it. Batman Superman World's Finest, issue number 19. So Mark Waid has joined by Travis Moore here, and the artwork is all right, and the coloring is still by Tamara Bonvillain, but it doesn't seem to have that panache that she usually brings to this book. So the art was okay. The story's been okay too. It's another retelling of the first time Batman and Superman meet. It's got some interesting elements, but it's not necessarily a story that we needed to get retreaded again and again. But by the end of this, it does kind of have some interesting spins on the story that it's trying to tell. So all in all, I am still enjoying this book. Definitely a classic yet modern feeling superhero comic from Mark Waid and Company. Then we got Nightwing issue 106. This was a decent enough issue of Nightwing. Let me take a look and try to remind myself. All right, so the art is by Stephen Byrne, who I believe was the artist on the Justice League Power Rangers crossover. The art is fine, it's cool, it's not quite Bruno Redondo. In fact, it's a little silly that this book took a 2-month hiatus and we don't have the regular artist here in this next issue. But this story was alright. It's tying back into some of the Rick Grayson stuff, which is kind of interesting, but at the same time, like, man, we really need to revisit that. But at the same time, it was decent enough. We got Heartless back in there. They're building that thread. This book has kind of lost some of its momentum, and that's not because of Night Terrors. It's just because sometimes this book takes a detour to do something that doesn't really feel like it's connected to the overarching story. But Nightwing 106 is starting to get some of those threads, some of those subplots back on track, and it's exciting, and it's interesting, and it's cool, but the artwork is just going to be a little bit of a step down than what we're used to. Titans is here with issue number 3. We got a new Church of Blood. What's going on there? A new Brother Blood. It seems like Tempest is somehow tied up into that. What a betrayal, right? But the way that they kind of work that out in this issue, it comes to a natural sense of this is what's going on and why, but then they pull that carpet out from under you again. Tom Taylor's tasked with the idea of making the Titans the premier superhero team in the DC universe. It does feel like it's forced, right? Like, you don't have to convince us that the Justice League are the shit. You don't have to convince us that the X-Men are the shit. You're having to convince us that the Titans are as important and as powerful and as exceptional as they are wanting us to believe they are, and sometimes it comes across a little heavy-handed. That being said, I am still liking this book. I like the art by Nicola Scott. It's solid, it's nice, it's clean, and the story is pretty solid. So I like Titans still so far. Hawk Girl is here with issue number 3. This is a book that I've been on record saying I like it. There are things about it that I connect with, but at the same time, I couldn't really say this is a must-read or anything like that. And here, after issue number 3, I still find certain elements of this that I do connect with, but overall, it is just kind of a clunky written comic, and it just has some interesting bits, but for the most part, it does become very forgettable once you set the book down. So I don't know if I'm going to keep reading Hawk Girl, but there are elements that I like, and then elements that just kind of, it's not that they bore me, but they're not super overly exciting. So Hawk Girl number 3 was just alright. Definitely stepping down my interest in that book. The Vigil here with issue number 5, the penultimate issue of Ron V's The Vigil. We got a guest artist on here, but it's structurally sound because there's a flashback. This is a big, explainy, exposition-y issue of The Vigil, but after the revelations at the end of the last issue, we need that. Now, when we had Rom on the show earlier this year, this book wasn't out yet, and he had sent me the script for the first issue and also the treatment that he sent to DC. So I knew where this series was going, and here it gets connected to some awesome, like, conspiracy theory kind of like paranormally type stuff that I really appreciate, and I've been waiting for this issue to happen, and the explanation is spot on, and it's perfect, and it is connected to something that a lot of us are familiar with, and it frickin' is awesome, and I love the revelations in this, and I love how it sets up what is going to be the conclusion. The Vigil has been an absolutely astonishing work set in the DC universe with new characters, with new concepts, with new ideas, albeit in the vein of Warren Ellis's Planetary, and I mean that solely almost by structure, not having anything to do with the characters or even the concepts within the story, but mostly in the structure. The Vigil number 5, another solid effort from Rom V and company. Batman White Knight presents Generation Joker issue number 5. This is a book about Harley Quinn and a Joker romance. They eventually have 2 kids. Joker dies. Harley starts developing feelings for Batman. Bruce develops feelings for Harley, and now he's like the surrogate stepfather to her kids. That sounds, if you would have told me this years ago that this was a book that was going to come out, I'd be like, that sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But it's not. It's incredibly well executed. And one of my favorite things about The White Knight isn't just Sean Murphy's reimagining of the Batman mythology and doing little tweaks here and there, making certain things familiar but other things very different. I love that even these side stories that you could easily say, you know what, it's not the Sean Murphy main plot, main story, it's a side story, it's skippable, it's got a different artist, it's got different writers. but it still works, and the book has a core to it that is filled with emotion, heart, tragedy, and nuance, and it just blows me away how much Sean Murphy and company have me feeling for Harley in the pages of Batman White Knight. Continuing in Generation Joker. Let's do some Marvel. We got Predator vs. Wolverine issue number 1, written by Benjamin Percy with artwork by Ken Lashley, Greg Land, Andrea DeVito. I tell you what, this book has a lot of potential. The story in this book is fine because the idea behind this 4-issue series is that Wolverine and the Predators have had this ongoing hunt and battle and fight for like over a century. That's a really cool concept. It's tied into the Predators, right? And it makes sense for them, but it's also tied into Wolverine and his history, and it makes sense for him. So I like these worlds colliding. A lot of people will roll their eyes at something like Predator versus Wolverine, but I'm like all here for it. Let's make this book exciting. Let's make it fun. And the story is decent enough. The problem is the artwork. Now, it starts off with Ken Lashley, and the art's fine. This is the art we need. We need something raw. We need something with an edge. We need something a little bit gnarly. But then we get to Greg Land, and Greg Land is Greg Land. We all got our thoughts and opinions on Greg Land, and we know what Greg Land do, and we know how he is. But this is even for Greg Land, some sloppy, lazy work, right? And then we get to the DeVito parts. There are some moments that work. There are some moments that work in there, but he probably just ripped it off from a movie. But then you get to the DeVito stuff at the end. It's like another era of Wolverine, and the art like kind of loses me there. It's inconsistent. It feels a little bit sloppy. So this is a book that needed some grit, some texture, some edge and roughness to the artwork. And so who at Marvel decided Greg Land should be on this book? I know that he can meet a deadline. It's because he makes sloppy shortcuts, but you know what? What do I know? Then we got Captain America issue number 1 from Marvel. It's a brand new Captain America series written by J. Michael Straczynski. I can love and hate J. Michael Straczynski. There are elements of his Spider-Man run I like. I didn't really like his Thor run. Hated his Superman and Wonder Woman run, but love certain things like Midnight Nation. Hate Rising Stars. Really appreciate 10 Grand. So I always go into a new JMS book with a little bit of hesitation. That being said, this was a decent enough issue of Captain America. It relies a lot on revealing certain things about Steve's past, when he was a kid, parts of his relationship with his mother, the apartment he grew up in, stuff like that. So it's good. It feels sincere. It feels wholesome. At the same time, it doesn't have a whole bunch of action. There's some moments in it that work, but this book needed to have a little bit more oomph behind it and a little bit less sentimentality, but it was still decent enough. We got Jesus Sayas on the artwork, and that's fine, and that's cool, and I love that Frank Miller cover right there, so I thought the new Captain America was decent. It was all right. Then we got Uncanny Spider-Man issue number 1. This is part of the Fall of X stuff. Nightcrawler, of course, Orcus has done the next mutant massacre. Mutants are banned in North America right now. Nightcrawler's trying to find his way, and so that he's not easily caught, I guess, by even Sentinels that can detect the mutant genome, but he decides he's going to dress up like a Spider-Man type character. That is so stupid. It makes no sense. It doesn't make sense in this issue. The issue itself is okay. It's not bad. It's interesting enough, but at the same time, it's just like, why? Why would he become Spider-Man when it's so obvious? There's even a bit in here where the villains are like, well, that's Nightcrawler. Who's he fooling? Who does he think he's fooling? Art's alright, it's decent, story's decent, it's just decent. It's nothing really to write home to mother about, but it's alright, I guess. Uncanny Spider-Man. Is that a Spider-Man book or an X-Men book? You decide. Then we got What If Dark Carnage, issue number 1. This was an alright issue. I mean, it's not got a very clear, what if. I guess the what if is, what if Carnage at some point gets tangled up with Dormammu, right? And it just didn't have a good, clear, through line of why we're doing this book at all. But the artwork by John McCrea was absolutely freaking fantastic. I loved the artwork. Maybe we need a John McCrea on Wolverine versus Predator, but I like the coloring. It's very poppy. It's very vibrant. It's got some bold choices. I really like the grit and the texture and the gnarliness in the book. Story, though, did not do much for me at all. It was kind of just I don't know, it kind of felt rushed. It didn't really feel, it felt disconnected. But the artwork in this book was freaking awesome. So there you go. Amazing Spider-Man issue number 34. Just when I thought I was out, they have pulled me back into Amazing Spider-Man. I love this new arc. I don't really want to fully spoil what's going on. I may have already done that on this channel. I'm not 100% sure, so I'm just going to play it safe now. But let's just say that Spider-Man is breaking bad yet again. He's gone back to the black costume. I guess at this point, they thought there was going to be a Kraven movie on the horizon, which is now like further along down the horizon. So it's kind of a Kraven-centric story. It's got some Goblin elements to it, but I do like it. Spider-Man's been a very inconsistent book. It's up, it's down. This is one of those up moments, but this issue in particular is relying a little too much on homaging Kraven's Last Hunt. And I get it. We all want to do that. We think there's a Kraven movie on the way. We're going to spotlight Kraven. We're going to have Spidey back in the black costume, acting a little bit more out of character, but for a good reason and purpose. You don't have to lean, those are great elements. You don't have to lean so heavy into the homaging of the J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck stuff from Kraven's Last Hunt. So I'm still digging it, still liking it, but just like I have been this whole run, I'm still waiting for that other shoe to drop. Then we got Uncanny Avengers issue number 2, a solid follow-up to issue number 1, which didn't overly impress me, but it didn't unimpress me. Disimpressed? I didn't think it sucked. Issue number 1. I didn't think issue number 2 sucked either, but I didn't think it was the greatest thing, but it's interesting enough. There is the reformation of the Unity Squad now after the mutant massacre perpetrated by Orcus. Captain America wants to reunite the Unity Squad. They're having a little bit of conflict. There's some interesting stuff going on. There's some action. Artwork's alright, story's pretty decent, characterization's decent too. So Uncanny Avengers number 2, I'm not saying that I'm fully sucked back in to the world of the X-Men, because I'm not, but I am definitely enjoying more X stuff than I have been since Hickman left the titles. Then we've got Dark X-Men issue number 2. I did like issue number 2 more than Uncanny Avengers. However, it's still not one of the greatest things out there, but I really do like the Madeline Pryor character and the way that who's writing this? Steve Fox. I really like the way that Steve Fox is kind of portraying that character and kind of got this ragtag group of X-Men as well as former X-villains against, like, is this the one with the New Mutant Liberation Front? No, that's this one. Yo, we got Wildside in that book. That's wild to me. Dark X-Men is Madeline Pryor's team. She's going out trying to save mutants that need saved in this new era, this new post-mutant massacre 2.0 kind of thing. And she's got a ragtag group of people. Some are not feeling completely down with what's going on, and others are. For instance, we got Maggot and Gambit in this book, and I love Maggot so much. I am so thankful that Maggot is still involved. Anyway, like the plot, like the art, like the story, like the characters, like what's going on in Dark X-Men. It's pretty weird. Alpha Flight number 2. If you would have told me over a month ago that I would be reading Alpha Flight number 2, I'd be like, you're lying. I'm going to read the first issue and be unimpressed and just be able to drop it. I really like that first issue of Alpha Flight connected to the Fall of X stuff, so I was excited to see what they do with issue number 2. It's a little bit of a step down in the excitement level, but to be honest, it was still rather enjoyable. In another X-Men book right now that it's not great, but it doesn't suck, and it's not completely just nonsense, and it's not just all over the place, and it's doing good things with this character and these characters, and it doesn't feel stiff, and it doesn't feel stagnant. It's got a nice flow to it. It didn't feel boring. It didn't feel dull. Alpha Flight. Who would have thought? Then we got Loki here with issue number 4, the final issue of this miniseries by Dan Watters, and I absolutely loved it. This was the strongest issue of this series, in my opinion. I really like the work that Dan Watters been doing with the character. Basically, a long time ago, Loki built a ship made out of toenails, fingernails, some shit like that, right? And it's like this haunted ship or whatever. Somebody goes and tries to steal it. It breaks apart and winds up manifesting in different kind of ways across the realms. Loki's been trying to go and find it and figure it out and like get it all back together. And in this final, the final piece is held by Bullseye. So it's Loki versus Bullseye. But I love what Dan Watters is doing in this issue where he's thematically relating Bullseye and the idea of like accuracy and deadly precision with his weapons, how he's relating that to truth, and how that relates to Loki being the god of lies, and how that's also trying to be what Loki is trying to subvert by being the god of stories other than the god of lies, but that's also related. So there's some really powerfully intricate themes developing here in the pages of Loki, and it's a setup for where Loki is now in the Thor book, but I loved Dan Water's take on Loki. Guardians of the Galaxy, issue number 6. This book is losing me. It's losing me. It's losing me fast. First of all, the artwork in this book is pretty cool. There's lots of cool, exciting things being done with the layouts and the design of this book. Some interesting things being done with the characters, kind of getting into these characters, but it also kind of comes across very confusing. It goes back and forth. It's supposed to be explaining the whole Groot fall thing, and it does, but at the same time, it all feels disconnected, disjointed, and it never really completely wows me. So 6 issues in, it's been inconsistent. It's been up and down. I might be done with Guardians of the Galaxy. But then we got Deadpool Battered Blood, issue number 4. Rob Liefeld doing what Rob Liefeld do, which is just be ridiculous, and I'm all here for it. Please keep giving Rob Liefeld more work. It's wonky. It is off. It is not the best work of his career, but there is an element of fun and ridiculousness that I just find fascinating in his work. I really do. Even his modern work, which is not near as good as the old school stuff, but I don't know. There's something about that book that appeals to me. Let's jump over to Image. And from Image, we have Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. This is a special one-shot comic book by Jack Kirby, presented by Tom Scioli, who just blew me away last week with the I Am Stan graphic novel that I highly recommend, one of my favorite books of the year. If you get a chance, pick up I Am Stan and read that book. It is absolutely perfection. I loved it. But I'm a huge fan of Tom Scioli. I know he's a huge fan of Jack Kirby. I'm a huge fan of Jack Kirby. So what this is a very early work from Jack Kirby called Solar Legion, right? Tom Scioli has taken it and remixed it. So what does that mean? That means that he's kind of taken the panels, he's rearranged them, he's taken out the color. I think the original one was in color. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was black and white. He's added this like red spot color throughout. I don't know if he's changed anything in the script. I think he's just changed out some of the pacing, some of the layouts. He's like blew up certain panels to make them less like, or to make them more dynamic, more powerful. And then there's even a bonus at the back. That's another Kirby book called Cyclone. It's kind of remixed by Tom Scioli. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I really appreciate Tom Scioli finding this early work from Kirby that I've never seen. He's done some videos about it on his YouTube channel, The Total Recall Show. Go check those out to see the process, to see some of the original Kirby stuff and see what he kind of did with it. Really fascinating videos over there. The Total Recall Show. Let him know that Pop Culture Philosophers sent you. But I loved this book. I was highly anticipating this. It did not disappoint. It's early Jack Kirby work, remixed by Tom Scioli. I am here for it, and I want more of this. Tom, if you're listening, can do more. I would love to see more Kirby remixes from Tom Scioli, and maybe even remixes of other early works from other influential and important comic book creators and artists. I loved Star Warriors. I'm going to read that again probably right before bed. I had so much fun with that. Then we got a new one, Hexagon Bridge, issue number 1 from Image. This is Richard Blake. I was really impressed with this book. I had no anticipation or expectation on this book, and it rather blew me away. It is one dude's vision. It is a really interesting sci-fi story in which there's like these portals that open up, and there's this other dimensional space in between the portal's entry and entry and outry. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, the artwork is gorgeous. It's spacious. It has room to breathe. The coloring is majestic. It has a scale and a scope to it. And the writing doesn't get in the way of the art. I don't know who I'm talking about there, but the writing doesn't get in the way of the art because it's one vision from a cartoonist who's doing a hell of a job. Playing with some concepts, introducing some characters, twisting those elements around, and wrapping it all up with luscious, gorgeous artwork. That's my sleeper pick of the week. That one blew me away. Then we got Junior Baker, The Righteous Faker, issue number 1. This is from Joe Casey. Joe Casey used to be one of my absolute favorite comic book writers. Back when he was doing Wildcats Volume 2 and 3.0. Back when he was doing a lot of work at Image, stuff at AIT Planet Lar, things like Rock Bottom, things like Code Flesh. I really like Joe Casey. So I haven't seen a lot of new work from Joe Casey in a while, so I was excited to check this out. Now, I know he did a book back in the day called, it's right here, Butcher Baker, The Righteous Maker. I don't know if this is connected to that book. I've never read that book, and I enjoyed this book. There's some interesting stuff. It's about this reporter who's trying to discover if superheroes are real. He's kind of like on the fringe reporting, like talking about paranormal stuff, UFOs, mysterious things, unsolved mysteries and stuff. And superheroes are kind of a part of that, so he's trying to prove the existence of this one group of superpowered individuals, and it's got amazing artwork. The artwork is by Ryan Quackenbush. Quackenbush. It's the dude's name. It gives me a Martin Simmons kind of vibe and flair to it. I really liked the artwork. I really liked some of the elements that were being played with here, but I did feel a little lost, and it didn't always... It was a little challenging at certain times. I definitely want to sit back and read it again, but if anybody out there has read the other one, Butcher Baker, the Righteous Maker, is that connected to this? Is that what I'm missing? Am I missing an element that would make this flow a little bit better for me? But aside from that, I did like it, but I did not completely get it, if that makes sense. Art was great, though. I loved it. Then we got Spawn here with issue 345. The whole war for hell has started. One thing in the pages of Spawn, things are epic that don't always feel epic and giant in scope. But then there are other things that are actually very small that feel big and epic in scope. So sometimes there's this weird imbalance with Spawn where the war for hell should be some of the biggest stuff, but some of the bigger, more epic moments are reserved for like smaller moments. But I am glad to see the momentum and movement on this book continuing to develop and pick up. Basically, Spawn and his team are in hell. You got one faction trying to take over hell, another faction trying to keep hell, then you got the green world stuff in the middle, and it's interesting, and it's not the most exciting Spawn book on shelves, but it is still exciting to me because cardstock cover, $2.99, one of the best deals in comics. Then we got Gunslinger Spawn, issue number 24. This is my favorite Spawn book right now. It is written by, of course, Todd McFarlane, Brett Booth on the artwork, and there is a big bombastic moment in here where Gunslinger gets his horse, and he's getting like a hell dinosaur horse, and I'm all here for it. I've really liked this book. I like that this book has more of a grounded approach. That sounds weird to say that a Spawn book is grounded, but it's a little bit more focused in on the character and a smaller scale story, albeit tied maybe into what's going on in the overall narrative of all the Spawn books, but this one definitely exists more on its own, and that classic feeling work from Brett Booth on the art. The only thing that does kind of hinder it a little bit is the coloring. Sometimes the color is just a little too much of the same, and it doesn't really make those foreground characters kind of pop out. So a little bit different approach with the coloring, and I think this could be one of the best books on shelves. Also, cardstock cover, $2.99. Where you at, Marvel? Where you at? Oh, non-cardstock, $5.99 books? Okay. All right. Click, Click, Boom is here with issue number 5. I'm loving this book by Doug Wagner, and the illustrations by Doug Dabb. So this is the team, the Dougs. This is the penultimate issue of this book. It is a great action series that's got a lot of heart to it, but also has a nice sense of it. Adventure's the wrong word. It's got a nice sense. It's a revenge tale. It's got a nice sense of brutality, and sincerity and heart to it that I really, really like. And it doesn't get bogged down in any kind of like over-explainy stuff. This book knows the pace that it's trying to set, and it's set that pace since issue number 1, and it's never let up. And this book continues that and sets up the finale, which just seems like it's going to be a brutal, murderous revenge fest, and I'm all here for that. Then we got Kaya here with issue number 11, because this goes to 11. These go to 11. Kaya number 11 is the end of the second book of this series, which is one of the best series out there. Wes Craig has been killing it, absolutely killing it, and establishing this world, building out this world, these different races that exist in this like fantasy world with slight sci-fi elements leaning into magic. It's about this dude, this one kid who's like the prophesized one. His sister's got to like protect him throughout all this danger. He's been kidnapped. This is a conclusion to that story. The artwork is just magnificent. The color is some of the best color in comics. The composition, the panel design, everything about this book frickin' slaps. And if you're not reading this, slap yourself, because this is one of the best books on shelves. Read Kaya. Do yourself a favor. Big Game is here with issue number 3, Mark Millar's big crossover between all of his properties. Once again, you got other elements. You got Huck in this issue. You got the Bite Club in this issue, or the Nightclub, my bad, the Nightclub, yeah. You got the Nightclub, you got Huck, you got other elements. There's a lot of shocking things in this book, and as my buddy Brainiac says, if you're familiar with Mark Millar, it shouldn't be that shocking. But actually, I would argue, Brian, that it is that shocking that he's being this casual with offing off some of his IP. That makes me feel like not all is what it seems in this book. By the way, the Big Game, the basic premise is this. Remember that book Mark Millar did, Wanted? Oh yeah, those dudes come back, and every book that Mark Millar's done is all connected, and they're showing up saying, you know what, too many superheroes again, time to wipe them all back out. And it feels very one-sided, but the Pepe Larraz artwork works for me. I think this book is fun, and if it maintains that what is actually happening, this could be one of the superhero crossovers with the highest stakes of all time. Big Game, issue number 3. I'm digging it. The Bone Orchard Mythos Tenement, issue number 4. Jeff Lemire, Andrea Sorrentino doing what they do best, which is provide an interesting story, a compelling mystery, engaging characters wrapped up in a tonally sound and atmospheric AF book. I love this book. The use of color, the use of shapes, the use of blacks in empty space. Something about this book, something about the work of Andrea Sorrentino is absolutely top-notch. Now, the coloring is done by Dave Stewart, I do believe. Yes, Dave Stewart, one of the absolute best colorists in the biz, but there's something going on with shapes, with composition, with the layouts, with the color, with the atmosphere. It's just like with Gideon Falls, where I felt every line meant something. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but it's making me feel like it is, and it's completely engrossing my imagination when I'm reading this book. It's a very dark book, but it's playing with these tropes and characters. And I'll tell you this, Tenement is what Evil Dead Rise should have been. Then we got Saga here with issue number 66. We had a really heavy issue of Saga last time, so we got to get away from that, obviously, and tell a little bit more of another story with other characters that haven't really been spotlighted in a few issues. So even though Saga's been on like a hiatus, when you pick up a new issue of Saga, sometimes you're like, wait, what happened? What happened? Are we not getting back to that? But then you get so wrapped up and engrossed in the story. The story is always moving. There's always elements progressing forward. Even when they set other things down and just focus on other things that they haven't focused in, that they've been set down, right? Does that make any kind of sense? This book, Brian K. Vaughan understands long-form comic book storytelling. Fiona Staples' artwork is fine, but it's Brian K. Vaughan being able, 66 issues in, so that means that this book is as long as Preacher now, kind of like Preacher, even though Preacher at times felt like, are we just spinning wheels right now waiting for the next arc? Saga never feels like that. I'm not saying Preacher felt like that all the way through. It's the Salvation story is the one that kind of did that for me there, but that doesn't really happen here, and kind of like Preacher, each issue moves the story a little bit, unfolds a little bit about characters, and there's a wider cast of characters probably here in Saga for Brian K. Vaughan to play with, but another solid, fantastic issue of Saga. Frank Millar's Ronin, Book 2, issue number 4 is here. I've been highly anticipating this issue of Ronin Book 2. Frank Millar's Ronin is one of my favorite Frank Miller books out there. I absolutely adore that book. I love the art in that book. I was really excited for this. This book's been done with Frank Miller's layouts, with Philip Tan doing pencils based on those layouts, and then, is it Daniel Henriquez doing the inking and the toning in this issue. This issue has no Philip Tan. This is done by Frank Miller. I was really curious, what would a Frank Miller drawn book look like in 2023, and I gotta say, I was impressed. Very much impressed with the grit, with the layouts, with the energy. I am not surprised too much because I am a mark for Frank Miller, and there's not much that he does that I don't really like Holy Terror sucks, but that's one of the only ones. I really like the bombastic giantness of this series. It's way different than Ronin Book 1, but at the same time, there's something that feels very much connected to it. Experimentation, grit, texture. I really like this book. I'm a huge Frank Miller fan. It was just such a blast to see Frank Miller do artwork again. And you know what? I am more excited for the new Sin City book than ever. Also, we're going to give this book the smell of the week, so there you go. Then we got Queen of Swords, issue number 3 from the World of Barbaric and Bald Comics, written by Michael Morisi, Colin Cowell on the artwork. A really great and satisfying conclusion to Queen of Swords that wraps up this story. It reveals a lot of stuff about these characters, their past, and then it's going to tie it right back into the main thread of the Barbaric series, and that's what a spin-off series needs to do, and it needs to do well, and Michael Morisi knows how to do it, and he's been doing it in Queen of Swords. Great artwork, a great utilization of new characters and some of the other characters that are more side characters, but establishing their bond, establishing their past, establishing the threat and the conflict as to why, when they hook back up with Soren and Owen, why it's going down. Queen of Swords, issue number 3. I really like that. Disney Villains, Hades, issue number 2 from Dynamite. I don't like the Hercules Disney movie that much. I haven't seen it since back when it first came out. Maybe I need to check it out again, but I love this book. So it's Hades trying to go on a mission to get the Golden Fleece. Meanwhile, Jason, with the Argonauts, they're doing their quest as well. And so Hades is putting together his own team. He's got like Icarus in there. He's got Orpheus in there. It's just really funny, and it's light, and it's having fun, and it's not taking itself seriously as it should. And I don't remember so much if this is really that connected into James Wood's portrayal of of Hades in the Hercules movie, because it's been so long since I've seen it. But this book is working for me, and honestly, I've been loving all the Disney Villains books. Scar's been solid, Maleficent has been magnificent, but I thought Hades was going to be like something that didn't really interest me just because I'm not super connected to that movie, but I am connected to Greek mythology, and I like the things that are being played with here, and I like the humor of the book. So there you go. You've Been Canceled, issue number 4 is here from Mad Cave Studios. This is the final issue. I have loved this book. The first issue, maybe the second, made the pick of the week. 3 kind of went down a little bit for me, and 4 brought it back up with a very solid ending to this title, though a little bit too abrupt. I do feel like this is one of those books that maybe needed to be fleshed out a little bit more. Maybe an extra issue or a few extra pages here and there would have really helped build some of this up and let us feel like that ending was truly earned. Because the ending just kind of comes and it ends. And then it's over. And I'm just like, what? Maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not. I don't know. That being said, You've Been Canceled, issue number 4. Now that it's all said and done, I think it was a very solid comic. All right, then we got Something Is Killing the Children, issue number 33. I'm done. I'm done with Something Is Killing the Children. It's boring. It's not exciting to me. I felt like nothing happened in this issue, y'all. I read this issue. I feel like nothing happened. Nothing moved forward. Nothing new was introduced. Nothing exciting happened. And my interest in this book has been waning for a while now. And honestly, I think I'm done. I think I am done with Something Is Killing the Children. It sucks to say that because this book for like the first 15, maybe even 20 issues was one of the best books on shelves, but they have lost the inspiration for this book. I think this book should have ended at issue 15, that first arc, like when James goes away. Not James Tynan, but the character James. The book should have gone away. Honestly, it's not doing anything exciting. It's not doing anything new. It's not building anything for me. It's coming across as rather dull. All right, cover of the week. I forgot to mention it. Cover of the week I am going to give to Rare Flavors number 1. I love the coloring on this issue in particular. It looks like it's done with like colored pencils or even crayon or something like that, but there is something about the coloring on this, the grittiness with it, the blending of the red and the blue up there that I absolutely love. So that's why it gets the cover of the week. All right, some trade paperback collections that are out this week that I want to spotlight. Ice Cream Man Volume 9. Ice Cream Man is one of the best comics on shelves. Each issue is its single, self-contained story. You don't need anything else to understand it. They're all their own story. They're all great. They're all unsettling, but at the same time, they're all telling us something about the human experience. This is Volume 9. This is a fantastic book. So if you've been reading Ice Cream Man by trade paperback, know that Volume 9 is here, and I just want to know, when we get in the next Sunday edition, that next hardcover, I need that. I need that right now. Then we got Creepy Archives Volume 2 in paperback. This is from Dark Horse. Now, we've had the Creepy and the Eerie, the Warren Publishing stuff. We've had it collected before in hardcovers, but the price was just always a little bit out of my range. I never got to commit. But I love the fact that just like with the EC stuff, Dark Horse is now doing paperback editions of the Warren stuff. Amazing artwork. You're going to see Alex Toth in here. You're going to see Frank Frazetta in here, John Severin, Archie Goodwin. Absolutely fantastic stuff. This is the stuff that I absolutely love, so I'm very excited for that. So Creepy Volume 2 is out. We got Eerie volumes on the way as well. And speaking of those EC archives, we got Two-Fisted Tales Volume 1. And here you're going to find work from... I definitely Harvey Kurtzman, let's see, Jack Davis, Harvey Kurtzman, Johnny Craig, Wally Wood, the typical, I got new neighbors, the typical EC crew, the Gang of Misfits, right? But I love this stuff. I have never read Two-Fisted Tales. I read all of Tales from the Crypt, Haunt of Fear, Vault of Horror, tons of that stuff, Weird Science, but I've never read the Two-Fisted Tales stuff, so I'm really, really excited for this. I think these are meant to be like crime stories. Looks like crime and war stories. Powerful stories of struggle and humanity that are considered to be among the best war stories ever told. This is all war stories. Okay. Two-Fisted Tales. I'm really excited to dive into that. So, let's recap. Something is Killing the Children. I am done with that book. You've been canceled. The book's not canceled, but it's over, and a really solid ending, though a little bit abrupt. Hades has been really impressing me. Queen of Swords has a nice conclusion this week. Frank Miller doing interior artwork on Ronin Book 2, and I was all here for it. It's not gonna be to everybody's taste, but you know what? That's okay. Saga continues to do what Saga do. Tenement is awesome, atmospheric, and just so freaking compelling. Then we got Big Game. Could be a big deal if things are actually happening, but I'm starting to suspect that we're not fully seeing what we think we're seeing. There's going to be one of those things at the end. We're like, well, we made you think this had happened the entire time. Plus, time travel's involved in this now. Kaya is one of the best books on shelves. Shame on you if you don't read it. Click, click, boom, a penultimate issue that sets up a very exciting and brutally violent conclusion. Gunslinger Spawn is awesome. I really like it. Could tweak the coloring a little bit. Spawn could tweak some of the scope. Let's make this like Hell War feel big. Let's make it feel gnarly. Maybe the artwork's too clean in it. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Junior Baker, The Righteous Faker. I felt a little lost, but I did enjoy it. Hexagon Bridge blew me away. Very shocked and surprised about how much I dug this book. Was nowhere near my radar. That's the sleeper hit of the week. Jack Kirby's Star Warrior, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. Tom Scioli remixing a very early Jack Kirby work. I believe this work is from when he's like 22 or something. 20 years before he creates the Fantastic Four. Deadpool, Battered Blood. It's Rob Liefeld, y'all. It's Rob Liefeld. Guardians of the Galaxy has lost me. I think I'm done with that, though there is some really nice page layouts and design in there. Loki number 4, a great, satisfying conclusion. I think Dan Waters has done one of my favorite Loki stories. Alpha Flight, issue 2. I'm surprised I read it. I'm more surprised I enjoyed it. Dark X-Men, issue number 2. I'm liking it. These X books are not necessarily the best, but they're not the worst. Uncanny Avengers as well. I'm digging it. Amazing Spider-Man. This is an inconsistent book, but at least right now it's on an upward turn, though it does rely a little bit too much on homaging Kraven's Last Hunt. What if Dark Carnage? What if this book didn't come out? What if this book had a different story? I might like it better because the John McCrea artwork is freaking fantastic. Uncanny Spider-Man. The dumbest idea, but it didn't come across terribly bad. Captain America number 1. Look at that Frank Miller cover. Am I the only one that likes that? I don't know. I really like that cover. Captain America number 1, a little bit too sentimental at times. Could have had a little bit more focus on action at times. But I think it's a good approach to the character. Predator versus Wolverine, really cool idea that needed some gritty, gnarly, rough, textured artwork that just doesn't have it because for some reason somebody decided to give the majority of this issue to Greg Land. So there you go. Batman, White Knight, Generation Joker, continuing to make me love Harley Quinn, and shipping Harley Quinn and Bruce makes no sense. The Vigil, a big explainy issue, but I love the explanation. Love the tie-in to a maybe historical event, but Ron B's killing it on the Vigil. Hawkgirl's starting to lose me. There's something that connects me to it, but it is clunky. Titans, been pretty solid. It's a tough task. It does feel a little heavy-handed and forced, but at the same time, it's working for me. Nightwing art takes a little bit of a step down, but it still is continuing some of those threads that Tom Taylor has established. Batman, Superman, World's Finest, a satisfying conclusion to another retelling of the first meeting of Batman and Superman, which we didn't need. Catwoman 57, an actual, essential, and integral part of the Batman-Catwoman Gotham War. If you're reading Batman, you do not want to miss this issue. I hate to say that, but you will not want to miss that issue. Superman continues to deliver its momentum after the Night Terrors break. Green Lantern War Journal, a John Stewart-centric Green Lantern comic book that I think will please a lot of fans. Wonder Woman #1, maybe a lot of people are going to like this, but for me, I just was not digging it. Excessive narration was getting in the way of the artwork and even the story itself. But Rare Flavors, issue #1, cover of the week, pick of the week, Ram V, Felipe Andrade, and World Design, Boom Studios, bam! Frickin' loved it. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been rocking Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom!